back with another violin tips video, and today we're going to talk all about shifting. There are 3 rules you need to know about practicing your shifting. The first one is to always keep your hand frame the same wherever you shift on the fingerboard. What I mean by that is you want your entire hand to move as a unit when you shift up or when you shift down. You don't want to leave your thumb behind. You don't want to start with your fingers and change the angle of your wrist and then bring it up with you. You also don't want to start with your wrist and then bring your fingers up. All of that can mess with your intonation and make it really hard to play in tune. The second big rule of shifting is not to shift blindly. Always use your guide notes. We're going to talk about what guide notes are and how to find them in just a minute. But first, the third rule of shifting is to always practice consistency. What I mean by that is if I'm practicing a shift and I get it almost there, like this, and then adjust my finger to where it needs to be, it's easy to be tempted to settle for that, but never settle for that. If I practice it that way and I don't go back and fix it, then I'm teaching my muscle memory to do it that way. And every time I play the shift, I'll be a little bit low. Instead, go back and practice that shift until you can get it consistently exactly where it needs to be without adjusting like this. Next, we'll talk about some tricks on how to actually practice your shifting. So if you've never practiced shifting before, the first thing to do is to get the motion of it down and practice getting that hand frame really steady and keeping it the same through your entire shift. When you're shifting, you want to be really loose in your left hand so that you're not gripping the fingerboard, because if you're gripping too hard, you can't go anywhere. So that's the first thing to think about. The easiest way to practice the motion of shifting before you actually put notes to it, and you don't need your bow for this, is to practice plucking your E string with your 4th finger, shift all the way up to your top of your fingerboard, and pluck the G string. So you can practice getting all the way over to that lower string, all the way up at the top. This takes your hand through all of the positions it's going to be in all the way up the fingerboard. When you get up to the body of the instrument, you want to let your thumb come around so that you have freedom of movement for these fingers. You can either leave your thumb here, or if you have really small hands and you can't reach the top of the fingerboard like this, you can let your thumb come up the side like this. So again, here's the exercise, and it's really good to do it in a specific tempo so that you're practicing getting there within a given amount of time, like this. Shift, 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 shift. And you can do that as many times as you want to get comfortable with that movement and get your hand really relaxed. The second exercise that you can do to practice shifting is the first exercise that you're going to actually put notes to. So you're going to start first with shifting with only 1 finger. So start on your 1st finger on any string and shift up to 3rd position. You're shifting a 3rd interval wise. When you go to make the shift, release your finger just slightly so that you can still hear your fingers sliding into place and you know exactly where you're going. Same thing on the way down, and you can practice this with all 3 fingers. You can also use a tuner to make sure you're shifting to the correct pitch if you're not sure. The next part of this exercise is to add another finger to the mix, and this is where we get into guide notes. I'll explain how those work. So if you're shifting from finger number 1 in 1st position to finger number 2 in 3rd position, you're going to use finger number 1 as your guide note. The actual slide is going to happen with your 1st finger, and once you get there, then you'll place your 2nd finger. Because if you know where your 1st finger goes, then you know where your second finger goes if you keep your hand frame consistent. Here's how it works. So you use the first finger as, like I said, a guide note, doing that shift we just practiced, 1, up to 1, and then you place the second finger. On the way down, you would use your second finger as the guide note. Whichever finger you are starting with is your guide note for the shift. This works just as well with two different fingers on different strings, because you know how to make a one finger shift on any string, and you can still use that finger as a guide note. Let me show you. If you're going from finger number 1 on the D string to finger number 2 on the A string, you would still use 1 as a guide note. Just like that. So it's really important when you have a difficult shift that you're practicing to go through and figure out exactly what your guide note is and practice shifting with that audible slide, just so that you can build muscle memory. And then, once you're really consistent, you take the audible slide out, but you still do the motion, you just lift your finger up so that you can't hear it. There's honestly so much more that I could go into on just the topic of shifting, but I hope that little tutorial was helpful for some of you to get you started. Of course, I'm open to any questions, and I'll see you next time. Bye!